welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using stock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Jin, Arthur B. Flat, Neil, Sensual Goat, Click OK, and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server. So, welcome one and all.
How are you?
Yo.
How are you? Those guys in the Discord? Yeah.
It's good.
Got your back, guys.
Got that Friday feeling where we're reminiscing about life in general, which is always a pleasant experience in the company of friends. Long may it continue into this live show. How you all doing in Discord? You all good? Don't think we've heard much from Discord other than from Dank.
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Really good to hear it, Steve.
Yeah.
That was Stevie, man.
Yeah, so I released a video just before going live, maybe a couple of hours ago, because I got an unexpected reply, or we, my wife and I, got an unexpected reply from our local council. So here in the UK, if you homeschool, you can be of one of two different camps. Off the radar or on the radar. Off the radar is where you basically tell everyone, get lost, we have no involvement with you whatsoever, and then you don't get any benefits for having kids if you're poor, things like that. You relinquish it all, but you can say, as the metaphor goes, off the radar. Flat Earth required. The other is on the radar, which is to say you let your council know, yes, we are homeschooling our children, and yes, we will be doing a good job. That also involves submitting a report, which my wife dutifully does each year for each of the two children. Now, typically, they get the report, and you're lucky if you get a reply saying thank you. They just acknowledge the receipt of the report, and you don't hear from them from another 12 months, and then you do it all again. On this particular occasion, we got a several paragraph reply, not only thanking us for the quote, heartwarming report that was a delight to read, end quote, but also a recognition of some of the things that the two kids do on their day-to-day lives. And therefore, in the pre-show, we were talking about some of our own experiences educationally as we grow up. Some of us tearaways and thieves as we are when we're kids, and some of us not. But like I say, that's for you to watch. If you want to become a member of Nathan Oakley 1980, you can watch it. Or if not, go and subscribe to my second channel, and then in a week or two it'll come out and you can watch it for free. The second channel's almost got 10,000 subscribers, but the viewing figures are horrendous. That is to say, I'll go and make a quick check on the uncut and after show that's going out on the second channel, typically about, 8 hours or so after the live show finishes. And there'll be like 16 people, 20 people watching. You're like, my God, this has taken hours to produce, and there's hardly anybody watching. It is served up to no one by YouTube. So we are so heavily censored that they just don't serve it up to anybody. Nobody receives it. And occasionally I'll ask my audience, do you receive these videos? And I'll get a reply, I get the microphone videos. You're like, oh, right, the videos I publish as a side hustle to keep the lights on because the YouTube videos are rubbish in terms of their viewership. You get the side hustle videos only. Oh, right, I see. How wonderful that YouTube doesn't want to let any of my subscribers or anybody know that I'm live, that I've got a new video out. But they will occasionally deliver a side hustle video from my YouTube part that's collaborating with eBay to sell a mic. But like I say, I don't really want those to be reaching my audience particularly. They're just there to sell a microphone. You know. Anyway, enough of my moaning. That's what we've been talking about in the pre-show. Schooling and our kids' schooling. Fun, fun, fun. Don't want to be too much of a baby bore, though. We will get into the flat earth content soon. I'm promising my audience that. If we don't get a fundamentalist religious zealot, I'm sure we'll reminisce about various other flat Earth aspects that have led us to the flat Earth measurements that we now talk about all day long.
Oh, we haven't done housekeeping in a few days.
That's right. Yeah. Just to talk about, do you remember we were talking about me being a bouncer? Well, my claim to fame would be this: we secured Depeche Mode. Do you remember the group Depeche Mode?
Yeah.
Of course, Depeche Mode, Flying the Windscreen.
Yeah, we secured them 3 times, Seal twice, and then there was this program that was on the BBC that used to be called No Problem. I don't even remember that one. That's going back some time. The whole cast, we secured them at a place called The Crypt in Brixton, which was just down the road. It was a church, and then they had The Crypt, right? And it's just down the road from the Empire State Studios, the Empire Club on Brixton High Road. Yeah, man, it was good. The No Problem gang. Yeah, those were the icing on the cake, if you will.
Depeche Mode was big in the 80s.
Yeah, they were really good.
Yeah, I mean, I was born in the 80s, so it's not like the 80s are that reminiscent for me. I haven't got that many memories of the 80s.
Yeah, but you know the music. Everybody knows the music of the 80s. It was the best era ever. It was a combination of 50s, 60s, and 70s. Boom. There's the 80s.
Yeah, you had New Wave, you had the Thompson Twins. Remember them? Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, they were good.
It was the British invasion times 2.
Yeah, they were good, but some good groups out there.
Yeah, it was.
I went from like New Romantics sort of thing, like you're talking about, Evan 17.
Yeah, there you go.
Duran. But also you got like in that. Also, then we had like 80s soul, like the SOS band and stuff. I used to listen to Mike Shaft's radio, and mixing started to come into the play, mixing these records together. So then you had a bit of that, and then you had your Acid House exploded. House music.
Yeah, that was good. Teardrop Explode was a group as well, wasn't it? Teardrop Explode, that was a good group.
And then indie music, you had your Stone Roses, Happy Monday. So you had a bit of everything in the 80s.
Yeah.
What about Level 42? When did they come out?
Level 42. They were brilliant.
Nasty bass player, boy.
Yeah, they were really good. The whole group, very good indeed.
I was explaining to my wife that back in those days, there was a far less technologically advanced approach to music. And one of the things that I was explaining to her was a plate reverb. So if you were, I don't know, in Abbey Road, in the basement, they'd have this giant sheet that you could literally feed a signal through, and it would vibrate the signal, and then it would come back into a different tape recorder if you were doing it from an original recording, or sometimes they'd play things through it live, and it would just add reverb. So when you see me in the intro or whatever, you can see all this acoustic treatment around me. And the whole point of acoustic treatment is to get rid of reverb. And in the case of places like Abbey Road, they'd get rid of it, make the room nice and dry so you could record a dry vocal, and then you'd run the vocal through a reverb plate in the basement and then back up into the tape recorder. So you'd have a whole room with this like 8-foot by 16-foot massive great big plate just designed to add reverb to the recording. Fast forward to now, and as long as you've got a dry enough room, there's a million different plugins to choose from that you can just digitally add a bit of reverb at whatever level you like with as much tweaking as you want to put into it. And it's easy. Now, you go even further into the future, it's almost there now in terms of AI music. You don't even need the room, you don't even need the microphone, you don't even need the person to do any singing. So we're in a time where technologically we've moved on vastly, where your Beatles or your Beach Boys or whoever in a recording environment where they might have a couple of tracks or 4 tracks to record on, and that's it. That's all you've got. You've got a tape recorder and a mixing desk with 4 channels, and you can turn the volume up and down on the channels, and that's about it. And if you're going to do any effects, the effect itself is going to be so costly in terms of literal real estate that is required to produce that effect, in this case reverb, that it makes the whole process horrendously expensive, meaning that to become a successful musician in the time of Beach Boys or Beatles, not only have you got to be really talented, you've got to be wealthy. That is to say, you've got to have enough money to invest in the recording process and lucky enough to be in that particular situation to be doing it at all. So your chances of becoming a musician of any description was 1 in a million. Now, anybody can be a musician. You just go buy a piece of AI software and be able to write a few lyrics and you can be a musician too.
Yeah, it's hogwash.
It's not hogwash. It's true. You've still got to have a certain degree of talent to be able to know what to input into the AI. You've only got to watch Mr. Cheswick work with AI music producing software.
Yeah, but Mr. Cheswick is a musician. He knows how to play.
Yeah.
One deck is a DJ. It's a different type of. Do I consider them musicians? I consider them creators. But unless you know how to play an instrument, you're not a musician.
I don't know if that's true. The point being that, like I say, anybody who's got a reasonable understanding of music can become a musician. Whereas, 30, 40 years ago, maybe a bit longer, 50 years ago, your chances of becoming a top draw musician were just as slim as they are today. But being a musician of any description was really difficult. And if you were going to record stuff, to be good, you just had to be outstanding as a musician. And even then, you'd still have to do 2 or 3 takes or more, right? I'm sure the Beatles did plenty of takes when they were doing their music, and you'd have to splice it together.
They were perfectionists, though.
Yeah,
they wanted it perfect.
But there's certain songs where they've taken Beatles songs, I'm talking about, where the engineer has had to splice together 2 different takes. And you can hear it. When you know that somebody has literally sat with that tape and sellotaped it together, spliced it together from 2 different recordings at 2 different times. Nowadays, you just bounce a new track on and it's easy. Even the term bounce has come from the days of the Beatles, where you'd have 2 tape recorders and you'd bounce the recordings back and forth between them.
Technology has advanced, but you still have to...
For many years.
Hold on, Neil. Go ahead, Mickey.
I'm a recording engineer, mix and mastering engineer. I run a studio. And the problem that we're really facing is that in this discussion that's going on right now, there's a confusion of terms, which is a musician being defined as a human being playing an instrument. And already there you have a line of confusion because with the advent of electronic or artificial music production, music instrument, meaning a synthesizer, which today you don't even need a synthesizer anymore to do it. So the term musician and music production, it's completely misunderstood. By that I mean, if you go to Suno website, you don't have to be a musician. You don't even have to be a producer. You just have to be a human being with an idea. You transmit this idea. It can be as little as just saying, hey, make me a song in that and that style, 2 minutes 30 long, with dealing about a woman on the beach, a love song, make it a country song. Within a couple of minutes, it will render you 5 different versions for you to choose from.
Who's going to do it live? Who's going to do it live?
Huh?
Who's going to do it live?
Nobody.
Then you're not a musician.
By your standards.
You sound like Bill O'Reilly.
I don't understand the question about doing it live.
You're saying if
I'm just telling you that
to be a musician, then
music production, the idea, the terms that we are using today in the age of AI are being misunderstood completely. Meaning somebody who is a producer, a music producer, I mean, what does he do? He doesn't have to be able to play anything. If he has if you have an idea about something, you can put that into the AI machine, and it will create it for you.
I understand that. Nobody doesn't understand that. George Martin was one of the greatest producers on earth, but he also was a musician.
I mean, you've got to stick with the definition. I mean, a musician is a person who's, a person is part of that definition. I know what you're saying. Things have progressed and, I mean, look at that. Who wrote that song now? If the earth was a big roast chicken.
You did.
I mean, that only took a few lyrics. Yeah. That only took a few lyrics. Yeah.
Because you're a DJ.
But, I mean, I'm not, mind you, I can strum a few chords on a guitar, but I wouldn't call myself a musician. But if you look at the definition of a musician, it does suggest that, it's a person who plays a musical instrument, especially as an occupation, or is musically talented. Now, musically talented, yeah. So, I mean, does that mean you've got to play an instrument if you're musically talented?
Not necessarily. There's always going to be this blurring of these lines. So I remember in the 90s when you had Norman Cook, otherwise known as Fatboy Slim, and he would sample stuff. And then he'd arrange it in Cubase with all the different samples and produce music. Now, people were like, he's not a musician, he's a producer. Like, but what's he producing? He's producing music. And that music is very much a song that you can dance to. And if you went and saw, which I have, Norman Cook live, he'd do a similar process on stage with what were his instruments. Samplers and looping devices. And he'd do it live. So he'd put together You've Come a Long Way, Baby, or whatever, and you'd be listening to it, and it'd be very different to what you heard on the album because he's doing it there and then. Same with it's sort of a crossover between DJing and music in terms of what he would be doing live, and still does, as far as I'm aware. But now, anybody who does that process and produces a song is more than happy to be labelled as a musician and put out an album in that particular manner. And it's nothing like the next step on, as Mickey Moose has just described, where you've got people who just go to an AI piece of software and say, here's a few lyrics, give me a love song in a country style, make it 3 minutes long. Bosh, enter. And then it shits out something for you to listen to.
No, I understand what you're saying, Nathan. That was probably a good show. I have nothing against that. You still got to put it all together, and you still got to perform it live, however he did it. Even if he did not know how to play an instrument, he knew how to work the equipment that he made the song with, right?
Exactly. So same with The Prodigy. They're probably a better example now, think about it. Because The Prodigy, you can watch how a Prodigy song gets put together in the same way as you can watch someone recreate a Norman Cook or Fatboy Slim song and go, okay, this is a process where with enough tools, synthesizers, computers, samplers, you can put together this song. But The Prodigy, you could very much go and watch a live performance with a drummer and a band behind them producing the music live that they'd taken from other records, sampled and put together on Cubase. So from that perspective, you're like, who's the musician? Well, Keith Flint used to be one of their dancers. Like when they were just doing it with sampling, they didn't have anything to keep the audience entertained, so they hired a couple of dancers, one of which was the guy with the spiky hair who ended up singing Firestarter. But he's not a singer. He's definitely not a musician. He can barely sing. I've heard him. He's dead now. But the point being that was their act, as it was called. And their act was very, very entertaining. Now, does that compare to Bjork? Hell no. When she's got a full orchestra behind her with proper musicians doing proper musical stuff, that, to me, demands a much higher level of respect when you see it perform live. So I get what you're driving at, Neil, but one act goes on stage and has got fireworks and a full orchestra. The next act goes on stage and everyone's headbanging the same. Everyone's loving it just as much. So what's the difference? Now, when it comes to AI, who's going to go on stage? That's your point, right, Neil? Well, these things tend to have a way to work themselves out so that whoever's producing these performances has a way of keeping the audience entertained. In modern times, when it's a DJ, they have these enormous televisions behind them with like a giant person that's reaching out to the audience on the screen, and it's incredibly dramatic. Why? Well, because the person who's actually doing the spinning of the records hasn't even got any records anymore. They've just got a couple of computers in front of them. And it's really boring and tedious to look at, with them twiddling a couple of knobs and pressing a couple of buttons. So you've got to provide something visually interesting to actually keep the audience engaged. Or giant lighting rigs. So there's I think it's in Vegas, that there's this club where they've got these massive TV stanchions that rotate around during the club night. And it's just a technological marvel to keep your eyes on and just overwhelm you visually with while you're in the club. I remember going to Miami in 2001, and in the middle of a set, I can't remember who the DJ was, it'll come to me, John Please Women or someone like that, and
DJ One Leg.
I don't know who it was. It's not relevant. But in the middle of this performance, in the club, it started snowing, and then black men in wedding dresses bungee jumped into the arena. Now, why? Well, because there's nothing else going on. There's a DJ, and he's spinning records at the time. It was actually records, but that wasn't enough. So you needed it to snow, and then for black men in wedding dresses to bungee jump into the arena, for you to go, what the hell? And be overwhelmed visually with something that is so off the wall that I'll never forget. You know what I mean? It was bonkers.
Well, back in the day, it used to just be the lighting, because when I seen the Police live, it was a great light show too. And they had this one particular song called Regatta de Blanc. And there was no singing, it was just yo, 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 yo. But it would culminate into a high point where they hit and they start singing the yeah, 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 yeah. And the way they did it on stage, like it was dark and lights were just spinning around. But when they got to that part, all the lights were turned on, and bam, you seen them live. And wow, talk about a freaking climax. But it was lights.
That's technical theatre. So that's what I did in performing arts when I got sick of them asking me to sing, because I'm not a big singer. I don't like it doing it. I'll do it because I need to flog microphones now, and I'll occasionally sing into one. But I'm not a great singer, and I never have been, and I probably never will be. But when I got to the point in performing arts where they're like, no, we're going to do musical theatre now, I'm like, no, I want to change course. So I changed to the technical theatre course and learned about sound and lighting, hence me being intrigued in audiophile things and microphones and such like, because I trained in, like Mickey Mouse, like doing sound engineering, like running desks and running multi-cores and making microphones work and making lighting rigs work and things of that nature. What the musos and performing arts guys that I was one of called the dark side. In other words, you're not a performer, you're a technician. You're like, well, yeah, but without the combined nature of all of it, without a sound engineer, you've got no sound. Without a lighting engineer, you've got no lights. Now, don't get me wrong, a really good performer can hold their own without any of that stuff. Just go and look at that ginger guy. What's his name? I can't remember his name. It'll come to me.
Gee, I'm drawing a blank.
Ed Sheeran?
Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran.
If you ever see Ed Sheeran play live, right, Ed Sheeran can come out in the day with no lights, nothing, just a PA and his equipment in front of him. And with a guitar, he can loop and sample himself, tapping and strumming on his guitar, and do every instrument. And he doesn't need anything. He doesn't need any lights. He just needs a PA and a microphone. And that guy, you can imagine that if he stripped all that away and he didn't have anything, he'd be tapping and singing, and he would still be able to do an entire set without anything, without even a mic. Now that, again, like Bjork, that commands a high degree of respect. You're like, no, you're a true musician. But what does that mean? True musician? Is he better than the Prodigy? No, he's not. But he can do it without the need for any garnish, without the need for any lights, without smoke machines. He doesn't need any of it.
That's the whole point. There you go. That's a true musician. When you don't need anything and you can hold an audience.
Yeah, but his music's for women.
Yeah, it is.
He was in that movie where the guy gets hit by the Indian guy gets hit by a bus or something, and when he wakes up, nobody knows who the Beatles are anymore, but he knows all their songs. Anybody ever see that movie?
Yeah.
Anyway, Ed Sheeran's in it. Like, somebody better shag him. Yeah, it was a good flick, though. I liked it.
Yeah, he couldn't. He's the only one who could remember that the Beatles existed.
Yeah, so he copied all their music and brought the Beatles to the world. But there was 2 people that could have exposed them. So yeah, that was a good flick. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, but they didn't because they wanted him to do it, right? They wanted to have the music out there.
Yeah, he thought they were going to blow it up on him, but they didn't. They were like, listen, the world needs the Beatles music, so keep going. But he wound up confessing anyway, but that was a good flick. I liked it.
Yeah, we're in a bizarre time when it comes to music. But it's always the way. Like I say, back when it was Norman Cook and the Prodigy sampling stuff, or even before that in the 80s, when loads of hip-hop artists were sampling stuff. That was really when it started. You know, the Amen break is just nicked from a record. Someone's gone dumpster diving in a load of records, they found something and gone, I really like this beat, let's sample it. Well, straight away, people were like, oh, I don't know if I like that, that's not real music. And like, well, why not? Just because you've sampled it. Who cares?
Yeah, you're right. In the 80s, when rap started getting bigger and bigger, they changed everything. Because then you started scratching, then you got your DJs, then now you got a whole different avenue you're going down.
Yeah, exactly. And that will be how this show goes in terms of it's going to be constantly in flux, constantly flowing and constantly changing. What seems really important, like looking at how far we can see the bottom of the Isle of Man, becomes utterly moot further down the line. It becomes redundant and unimportant. There's an ebb and flow to the subject that I really enjoy. And right now, while it seems like the most important thing in the world to point out that Earth is measured flat in all circumstances, that too may very well become redundant 5 years from now, 10 years
I was
from
thinking about that. How? Because you got to have what? I'm trying to think. What else can you possibly come up with to make Earth more flat? Or to prove that Earth is flat? I don't know.
Well,
I think we've reached a line.
And well, you always feel that way when you get to a certain point in time. So, like I say, with the Isle of Man, it was like, well, we've got to the point where we've so utterly destroyed the curve calculator based on observations working within the begging the question fallacy. That means that the job's a good one, right? We've done it to the point where we've overcome the rumpus with this observation that Anthony Riley got on his belly from some bees, where you can still see all of the bottom of the Isle of Man 30 miles away from 1 inch above the ground, above the sea level, rather. And you're like, but we had sea level. We had a horizontal distance measurement to it. Your height was perpendicular to a plane when you measured your 1 inch above it. Everything about that observation required Earth to be measured flat before you did anything, before you clicked open on the shutter of the camera. Before anything was done, everything was being measured flat. But 5 years from now, it might be the case that the people who we've been appealing to for the last 5 years to say, why don't you get it? Why don't you understand that all of your standards for your globe belief require you to measure Earth as it presents itself flat? In 5 years, they might say, well, that's so obvious. We always knew. In other words, there's people who have been our enemy, the anti-flat earthers, that accept it as though it was always the case anyway. Now, it was and will always be the case anyway. Hence, you can suggest that us pointing out something that's really obvious and required and always being measured will just be accepted as it always was and always will be measured. And that's flat. Now, at that point, does it become the case that the evergreen nature of flat earth debate stops being so evergreen? Well, yeah. If everybody goes, well, we always knew it was measured flat, it's measured flat. You're like, well, what purpose do I have then in being here if everyone realises that their bull religion fundamentally relies upon them measuring Earth flat to achieve it? That the conversion, the calculation of a sphere is based on measuring Earth flat, and then people can take or leave their religion of a ball. That's the beginning of the death throes of the bull religion. It may fade into obscurity. Now, my speculation is that's part of the purpose of having something like Scientology. You can keep the archived version of heliocentrism alive in a very niche religion, but simultaneously, like they've got physical archives of the heliocentric worldview in heliocentric vaults, in Scientology vaults, that keep all of this very valuable data ready to be recycled in a very psychopathic way. Should it ever need to be brought back off the shelf, were it to die in 5 years from now, when the whole world goes, yeah, we always knew it was flat, that's how it's measured, Nathan. Why are you pointing out the obvious? It's like, well, you can't just sacrifice the fruitful work of heliocentrists over the last 200 to 300 years. You need a way of preserving it. You know, the psychopathic nature of rulership is such that they need to incorporate and recycle old rhetoric. So heliocentrism needs to be preserved, and my humble opinion is that it's being preserved in the form of Scientology, because it's a one-for-one. There is literally no difference. There's less difference today between heliocentrism and an offshoot of it, which is Scientology, than there ever was, because of the advent of people's belief in aliens that's being pumped to them from mainstream sources. Well, back in the 70s and 80s, you were laughed out of town if you thought that there were aliens. The rhetoric was such that the vastness of the heliocentric model meant that there was no possibility of us incorporating alien life into our own. Nowadays, they've incorporated alien life through bullshit into people's everyday life successfully, through the TV and through the apps and through the YouTubes and all of the means that we know of at their disposal. Well, that means that people believe in aliens these days. I find that absolutely laughable. When I see reports or YouTube videos where people are fear bombing their audience with this crap, and I'm like, when you know, right? When you know space is fake, when you know that there is no orbital motion and that the derivation of orbital motion, the calculation comes from measuring Earth flat, making it an impossibility. You know that the fear porn of aliens from far, far away can only be nonsense, like the moon landing's nonsense. For the same reasons, you can just disavow all of it in a heartbeat. Therefore, the fear porn ceases to work on me and my family as an extension. But for the majority, that fear porn works, man. People are genuinely scared of aliens at the moment, which I just think is so stupid. You're like, back in the 70s, you'd be on the back page of the Star, like described in Men in Black. Like the kooky people that believe in aliens that start talking about their abduction stories. Bigfoot. And clone centers and Mandela effect.
Yeah, I think they came out with...
Are you talking...
Go ahead, one deck.
I'm saying, like, you're talking about upper space or outer space, Nathan? Like you've described it before about the lands that have been discovered, like, you know, Australia, and that is in outer space, isn't it? And as opposed to people that was living on these lands, you could call them aliens, I suppose.
So what you're referring to is 10th Man's research in some of the books from the 1800s, where outer space was described as being beyond the offing being the horizon. That was the area that was being explored when we discovered new lands. Outer space was beyond the horizon. And that was the terminology that it was being described with. And now they've hijacked the directionality that you see on a compass, that's to say out towards the horizon is no longer outer space, where you find new land, new soil, new resources, new people. Now, new soil comes from the sky. The lights are the soil and they've got new people on them. Yeah, that's what outer space has become. It's no longer the area that we find new lands in to put on new maps. They're no longer the new worlds we found horizontally in previous history. So by experience, we found new lands in outer space. We did it horizontally. Now, speculatively, we could potentially find new lands out in the sky. You're like, that's absurd. The land is on the ground. It's not in the sky. But this inverted, I hate to say it, but satanic way of looking at things takes the reality of a ground that you can explore, mine, resources I've got in abundance, and translates that into an empty area where the gases reside above our heads. And the twinkling lights have got resources. It's like, give me anything that's been mined from the sky. And the answer is you won't. It's absurd. But that is legitimately not only what people believe in, like people want to escape from where they are on the ground to a non-existent soil in the sky. I see it all the time. People, just the other day on one of the clips on Fisherman in a Box was Piers Morgan talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson saying, we must leave this planet. We're going to run out of resources. We've got to go out to somewhere else, right? Because we can't be sustained forever. And you're like, so in your crazy worldview, you're going to find new resources in the air? In the sky? You're like, just step back from what you're saying and realize how absurd it is.
I don't think they realize it, Nathan. I don't think the everyday person realizes what their belief system entails. I don't think they realize that they are part of the soil in the sky. I don't think they put two and two together yet.
All right, we've got the
perfect psyop. It's like in oh, sorry.
It's all right. I just want to do a couple of shout outs. Just 1 second. Shout out to Calric who says, Earth is flat, space is fake, God is real, love, truth. Thank you very much, Calric, for the super chat. Let's just see if I can put that on screen, if I can find it. There we go. And also, we've got ourselves a comedian. Yeah, Duncan McLeod thinks he's being funny. He says it was Berenstein, Nathan. Yeah, very nice, very good Mandela reference. I am not amused. But thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate the support in all sincerity. Smash the super chat if you want to support this channel. Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, it's it's a total psyops, like in the Truman Show, when that scene when he's in the classroom and he's like, "Oh, I want to be an explorer," and the teacher goes, "Oh, we've already explored everything. there's nothing new to explore." And that's kind of like the idea with the ball. No, it's like once you go south a certain way, and then it finishes. You can't go further. So it's that psyops is very effective. So where else can you go if you can't, if going around the ball brings you always back to the same place, where else can you go but up?
I don't think they realize, though. I don't think the everyday person does not realize that they are part, living on Earth in their belief system, that they're soil in the sky themselves, right here on Earth. I don't think they put two and two together yet.
Another shout out to Duncan McLeod who says, it was though, laughy face, laughy face, laughy face. Yes, ha ha ha, very amusing. So in the last couple of days we've been talking about Jesse Spots, who was a Mandela proponent 11 years ago, along with a clone centre proponent and a dome rainbow proponent. Suggesting Taylor Swift's a clone is going to get my goat, I'll tell you now. But just goes to show how long Taylor Swift's been making music. Speaking of which, we've got Mr. Cheswick in the chat. Go and subscribe to Mr. Cheswick if you want to see what we were talking about. Were we talking about in the live show or were we talking about in the pre-show? Specifically Mr. Cheswick and his musical inclinations being put to good effect with AI tools, which is what they are really for someone who's a proper musician, tools for making music with. And if you're proficient at making music in general, you'll just see AI as another tool to make music with. And therefore you can craft your music with that tool, and that's precisely what we were discussing in the pre-show. So you got quite a few mentions, Mr. Cheswick. Thank you for being here.
I said Mr. Cheswick is a genuine musician. So like you said, he uses the AI and stuff as advanced stuff that he could use to make his music better. But he's a musician. He can stand there with a guitar and hold an audience.
So I recently changed after about 8 years of it being my main channel video that plays. So if you're not subscribed to Nathan Oakley 1980, if you've come to this channel just by off chance because you've been provided it, highly unlikely, I say tongue in cheek, but just by like a random 1 in a million chance you happen to be here and not subscribed, then you'd get played a video on my main channel. And it used to be Here and Love singing about housekeeping questions. If we live on a plane, it was called. Do you believe we live on a plane? That one. Well, I changed that recently to Mr. Cheswick's Where's the Guns, Nathan? So now when you come as a person unsubscribed, that's what you hear. It plays automatically. So if you're wondering who Mr. Cheswick is, he's the musician who created the song that plays on my channel if you're not subscribed, called Where Are the Guns, Nathan. You can still see it if you're subscribed. It just doesn't automatically play. It just appears as a box at the top of my channel. So yeah, that's who we're talking about, and that's one of the fruits of his labour, let's call it.
Right, just before you go on, you were talking about the Beatles earlier on. Well, there's a place in Japan here that we go quite often, me and the family. It's taken the album cover from the 1969 Abbey Road, where the Beatles are walking across the road, and they've made that a theme of the restaurant, right? And if you go into the main text chat, I've posted a picture of me pretending to be part of the Beatles walking across the road, because they've painted it on the wall, okay? And they've got the Volkswagen in there as well. There's an actual Harper Volkswagen in that restaurant. It's really good, okay? And the boy that's in the blue T-shirt laughing, that'd be my son, one of my sons, right? And yeah, so we're like, it's really good, you know, that they've taken that theme and they made a restaurant out of it. And they play all the Beatles tracks and tracks from the 60s. Okay, so the Beatles is quite alive here in Japan. There are people who love the Beatles music, and yeah, a place called Nasu in Shiobara. Nasu Shiobara. It's famous for its ski, cows and milk and cream, all that kind of stuff they do there. You know, that's out in the sticks, of course, but a nice restaurant.
Does the license plate, is it 28IF?
That's the one.
Oh boy.
So there was another one of those all conspiracies lead to flat earth moments with the Beatles, specifically about, I don't know, 10 years ago again, where the conspiracy that Paul is dead was another one of those things that was being talked about amongst people who were also talking about flat earth. And on a show about a fortnight ago, I played a section from a YouTuber called Wings of Pegasus. And Wings of Pegasus, predominantly at the moment at least, he did do other things, but all he likes to do at the moment more than anything else is show where claim to be high quality musicians are auto-tuning themselves live. That is to say, what you hear coming out the PA isn't what they've sung into the microphone. They're either lip-syncing or auto-tuning it, or they're doing it live and then auto-tuning it for the YouTube video. And he just shows you with his software how each note's been snapped perfectly to the note that it's supposed to be, and all those sorts of things, right? Well, one of the things that he covered that we, like I say, we've already covered this, so you might be able to go back and find the show. He showed how conclusively wrong this idea that Paul is dead is by the veins in Paul's hand. So he's showing older footage where you can see him playing his bass with the veins on his hand in a particular arrangement, and then you fast forward to more modern versions of Beatles being, you know, doing their thing, and Paul specifically playing his bass and the veins being the same. So it's definitely the same guy, unless they've transplanted the venous system of Paul McCartney into a new guy. Highly unlikely. But yeah, he conclusively debunked it. And it's another one of those, well, when that debunking comes out, any flat earthers who've gone along with the idea that Paul was dead and replaced by somebody else who had to learn how to be left-handed and all this kind of nonsense was a way of making a conspiracy subject a flat earth subject. You know, take this person that's saying Paul's dead, put them in the arena with flat earthers, and then we can mock the individual for being a crazy nutter rather than the flat earth that they're not proving.
Well, I wish I would have known about this guy years ago when I used to get freaking berated in your chats having to defend that Paul is still alive. I used to get bombarded with it. He's not Paul, he's Faul. Faul. And I would get hit with all these supposed clues, which I've heard a million times before. But yeah, you cannot get past that, the vein thingy there. Yeah, Paul's alive and well.
Exactly. So you get so many people telling you from the chat that you're wrong and that you're crazy because you don't know that Paul's dead already. And you're like, what does this serve to do? Oh yeah, you're all flat earthers, aren't you? Yeah, so you're just conspiratard nutcases now because you've been proven wrong with your really dedicated rhetoric about Paul being dead. Not at all flat Earth related. Who cares? It's nonsense, right? Now, having to unpick this sort of stuff is something that I've spent the last 10 years doing, like undoing rhetoric. So I did it once with, I still to this day feel a little bit guilty with Dave Murphy, who was talking about Mandela effect on one of the interviews I did. So Flat Earth UK, I had Dave Murphy on. He talked all about Mandela effect. And after the show had finished, I debunked one of his Mandela effects. So quite specifically, the gold leg from C-3PO. Everybody heard of that particular Mandela nonsense? You all heard of that?
Yeah,
No?
Dave taught me about that one.
Well, there's an idea.
Yeah,
that,
I heard about that one. Yeah, the silver leg thing.
yeah, he's got one silver and one gold leg, but he always has. Now, one of the things that I used to do back in the day was sell hi-fi in my hometown in a store called Leamington Hi-Fi. And one of the things that particular store was really big on was laser discs. And laser discs, by comparison to what most people had, home recordings, VHS cassettes or Betamax, a laser disc was just so drastically superior, it wasn't even funny. It was no comparison. And you could place them on a laser disc in our downstairs demonstration room on an 8-foot screen with a line doubler, and it would look absolutely breathtaking with massive sound, and you'd play them Star Wars. You get out your Criterion collection Star Wars that cost 200 quid on Laserdisc, and you'd bung it on. But before you did, you'd you'd ask them. It wouldn't always be Star Wars, but you'd ask them like, what films are you familiar with on your home rig, right? What would you play on your TV with your VHS cassette? And they'd be like, Star Wars. You'd be like, okay, well let's go and have a look at what Star Wars looks like on our rig, because they'd never believed that they could be improved. They're like, I've got a Sony Trinitron and a 4-head VHS. Nothing can beat it. It's just, you're never going to show me anything better. You're like, oh yeah, come downstairs and I'll prove you wrong. So you take them down and you'd play them a scene and they go, oh my God, has he got a silver leg? And you'd be like, yeah, you just couldn't see it on your crappy VHS quality cassette. But on this Laserdisc, you can specifically see all of those little subtle details that you would never have noticed. Now, would you have noticed at the cinema? Yeah, but when you watched it at the cinema, you weren't paying attention to what colour legs it got. You were hooked on the fact that there's lasers going off and everyone's being shot at. That's not something that you're going to pay close attention to. And when it's a calm scene with dialogue and they're walking across the sand dunes, and again, that was really glaring in the Laserdisc, but on a VHS cassette, it was so subtle that you couldn't even tell it was there. But people would swear blind that Mandela effect has changed his bleeding leg colour. You're like, no. Having had plenty of time to demonstrate to people the superior quality of Laserdisc, one of the subtle details that was brought out was his leg. Now me, I'm colourblind and I could still see it on the Laserdisc. But that was just the kind of thing that you wanted to hook someone into buying a $2,000 Laserdisc player and buying a couple of your Criterion Collection Star Wars Laserdiscs, that hopefully hadn't rotted. So yeah, you had to actually show them that it was genuinely better and superior. And the same would apply to music. If you've got a really nice rig with a really big set of speakers in a well-treated room and you stick someone in front of their favourite album, you tell them, bring your own album in and we'll play that on the rig. And you'd play something to them and they go, oh my God, is that a tambourine? You'd be like, yeah. They'd be like, I've never heard that before. You're like, you got a sale because that person's never heard that tambourine before in their mishmash on their boombox in their kitchen. But in your den room with 10 grand speakers and a really expensive amplifier and a lovely CD player in a well-treated space, suddenly you can hear all those nuances and subtleties. But for the average conspiratard, well, there wasn't a tambourine in it originally. No, you just couldn't hear it on your cassette tape, on your boombox. So yeah, all conspiracies lead to flat Earth. For a reason. Why? So they can get away with using the measurements of a flat Earth all day, every day for their bull religion that they'll calculate into existence from flat Earth measurements. So you need the flat Earth measurements. You just don't need them being talked about. Now, if you go to someone who's in an engineering field or someone who's in a surveying field and start talking about how Earth is measured flat, they're going to instantly recognise it. And if they're ushered into talking about it on a YouTube channel like we are, then who's going to not take them seriously when they say, well, yeah, of course it's measured flat locally. We have to measure it flat. We're referencing the horizontal and deviations thereof. So of course it's measured flat. Isn't going to be very conducive with convincing people that they're on a sphere. But whistling past it in debate means that your average Joe who highlights how flat Earth gets measured without a single hint of irony or mention of sphericity is accepted when you compartmentalise that description from a surveyor. When they describe how flat they measure it, you're not consciously thinking, well, does that mean it's not ball-shaped? But then if you come across the debate and we say, C-3PO's leg was always gold and now it's silver, and also Earth's flat, and Taylor Swift's a clone, it was Berenstein, you're going to just sound like a nutter, and therefore you can easily whistle past all of the actual measurements. And if you do get to the measurements, you're being given a begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculated study, and you're not being told that the data being inputted into it is flat Earth prerequisite measurements from surface level, horizontal distance, parallel eye level. You're not told any of those things. You're just told punch in these numbers and see where Earth curve should be.
Well, the thing is, Nathan, by the time you do get to the measurements, they got you down as a full-blown nutter with all these conspiracies. And they designed it that way. We spoke about it. So flat Earth could be the conspiracy as well. So they did a very good job on how they presented this to us and how we're to argue it. Because I heard yesterday they're talking about how they're seeing too far. I think it was on Earth Awakenings. I mean, what are you going to do?
I have to point it out, Neil. What do you mean see too far? The distance that you're claiming is a horizontal, and the measurement is from surface level for your elevation. Your eye level punched into the calculation is parallel with surface level. You've got 3 prerequisite flat Earth measurements before you've done anything in the calculation that suggests how far you should see. And calculations in an orthographic view don't dictate how far you see. Your eyes dictate how far you can see, and your eyes work on a principle of perspective. Now, for me, even that is a step too far. Why do I need to explain how your eyes function when you're being taken through a calculator that has flat Earth measurements punched into it? What's the point in explaining perspective? The answer is you don't need to. You only need to understand how Earth's been measured to understand that the whole game is rigged. Rigged to make you argue where Earth curve is and how far is too far. And flat earthers will be doing this for the next 5 years, I absolutely guarantee it.
There's a few examples of that situation. One, which I always bring up rather than arguing the facts about where the horizon should be. I simply point out that the horizon's never been defined as a physical location. It hasn't, except for in the heliocentric nonsense. So you find yourself arguing about that a lot, or you did do. You don't have to. Why are you arguing about something that's apparent and where its location is? It's ridiculous. They've also done it with tangent lines, because in the celestial navigation topic, you'll find that the balls will say, well, we're using a tangent line on the top of the sphere. Now, that's ridiculous as well. But you'll find that, and I've done it myself in the past, you start arguing about a tangent line, it's only touching one point of the circle or sphere, and you can only get 1 point on it. When you're talking about the GP of the sun and the observer, there's 2 points and the distance in between it. Where at the end of the day, you don't even need to go down there, because a tangent line isn't tangible. It's a mathematical concept. So nobody who's navigating has got a tangent line in the backpack, and it's something mathematical. It's a physical
or a tangent mirror.
No, but why are they even saying a term like we see too far?
Yeah, but
why is that even being brought up in 2025?
I don't know, but like I say, this tangent line thing, it's a mathematical concept. Why do we find ourselves even trying to discuss that a tangent line can't be used? It can't be used. It's a concept.
It's not used, it's measured. So this was refracted curvature's argument. We're measuring from the surface, whereas a tangent, as you put it mathematically, is described to a single point on a ball. Well, when we measure, we're not measuring to a ball, we're measuring from the surface level.
Exactly. Well, I think that's what we were saying earlier. It's getting to that point now where, as now we've got down to the bare bones of the measurements, we're unraveling the things and looking like the pizza pie example the other day, arguing about that. What else? What we've just mentioned there, seen too far. You'd argue about that. Tangent lines, we'd be arguing about that. Where nobody's got a tangent line in their pocket when they're navigating. You're using the surface of Earth, for crying out loud.
Exactly.
Called today's show, Paul is dead.
It's fall, not Paul.
Yeah, get it right. It's fall. F-A-U-L.
I want to know what I'm talking about if I put fall. Yeah, all conspiracies lead to flat Earth for a reason, so flat Earth can become a conspiracy and we can whistle past all of the flat Earth measurements that are being used to believe you're on a ball. That's the bottom line.
Exactly. And then when you do come up with the measurements, they think you're a kook. So who's going to listen to you?
On the other hand, Neil, who cares if they listen to us? I mean, most of the people aren't ready for this information. They want the religion. They want to be lied to.
Well, if they're waiting for aliens, I'm sure they do want this.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think people are genuinely waiting for the next life, the next trip, the next planet. And that is very appealing.
So before I ask anybody if they've ever heard about flat Earth, I first need to ask them, have they first heard of Alan Watts?
What, see if they can appreciate that they're not ready for it spiritually.
I've been using that in a lot of replies. Someone on your recent YouTube, I've got into a little bit of discussion, and it's really, I just keep saying, well, a lot of people like you who need to argue and need to be behaving like you are and suggesting these things because it keeps your illusion alive. It's okay. Don't worry about it. You're not on your own. I'm sort of playing it like that, and they don't know how to take it. I'm being very calm, and I'm just telling them they're in an illusion, and you have to keep your illusion alive by changing definitions and saying what you're saying, but you're not on your own. That's what you have to do to keep it going. So good luck with that.
Yeah, they're watching a very different movie to us.
I'm just curious, is there anybody in here that at one point or another did not believe the PSYOP globe story?
Was anybody here never a glober?
Exactly.
I doubt it. Everyone came from the same path. Everyone was brought up in that religion. It is the Western world, or no, not even the Western world. It is the one world religion. Heliocentrism is the one world religion.
Yep.
And that's why it's so hard.
I think normal.
That's why it's so. I mean, we got out of it. We came through different paths. We were investigative minds, all of us. We came to it, but the PSYOP, the effectiveness, the success is deep. I've shared this before. I was at Lake Geneva showing my P900, my Nikon P900, some 16 and a half miles across the lake, where according to Earth curvature calculator, you cannot see the castle at the other end of the lake. I showed this to a university student. The lady told me, she looked through it and she goes, obviously there must be a problem with your camera.
But these days, the distance that you describe it with is a horizontal, flat Earth, linear distance measurement. Your height that you'd apply to the curve calculator to suggest where it should or shouldn't be seen is perpendicular to a plane of reference. And the eye level that you achieve when you measure it perpendicular to a plane of reference is parallel with the plane of reference. All of the measurements are flat, in other words, before you start telling people how far you should or shouldn't see the thing in the distance.
Right. But, that was before I got to all this.
Well, there used to be an example that I'd give out on live shows, which I'll give you a rendition of now. There's two guys, and they're sat at the beach, looking out into the distance, and they see an island. And the one guy, who's a globe believer, says, "Oh my God, we can see the island in the distance. It must be a slightly looming non-standard refraction hyena holographic projection of the island from above the physical geometric sphere edge that's residing below the surface level that we'd measure at 18 miles. So that's not really an island that we're seeing at all. It's actually a mirage." And the guy next to him, who's a flat earther, says, "I just see an island." Right, we're up on our hour, but I'm happy to stay live for a bit longer if you all guys want to chit-chat like it was the after show.
That would be great.
Do you want to stay live for a bit? We'll,
If you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely, it's Friday. We don't get this till Monday, so let's keep it going.
Yeah, that's
Can I
what I'm
just say,
saying.
Nathan, that was such a profound point about the one world religion, because I remember that term being loosely branded about in conspiracy videos about 10 years ago on YouTube. And I used to think to myself, how can you get Christians and Muslims, as examples, to agree on anything, let alone disband their own religions and join in one religion? That's just impossible. But this is how it's been done. And ironically, the religion they're in contradicts their other religion. So,
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're a Sikh,
crazy when you
Muslim,
think about it.
Hindu, atheist, Christian. It makes absolutely no difference. Anybody you ask believes that they're on a spinning ball flying through a sky vacuum.
And it does constitute as a religion, right?
Well, it's a faith-based religion that's been created out of measurements. So yeah, measurements are real. They're flat. The religion's a derivation that's been created by the Roman Catholic Church. I mean, if you're a Muslim, you'd be pretty shocked if you found out, well, no, your belief in a ball flying around the sun is just based on the Roman Catholic Church's derivation from Huygens, Kepler. You know, the Keplerian religion that you're partaking in is just a Roman Catholic creation. But who knew? When you own all the telescopes and you've got all of the mathematicians creating these systems, then yeah, you can create a one world religion for everyone to believe in. You only have to propagate it through mainstream media outlets, newspapers, TV, cinema. And if you control those things, then you control the world in terms of what they believe in. And they have achieved it with heliocentrism. Like I say, if it did ever fall, it's all archived by the Scientologists. And they've got some of the most amazing vaults underground with full temperature and climate control, the full shebango. Well, what do you think they're storing there? They're storing the story of heliocentrism.
Tom Cruise movies.
No, they're storing heliocentric rhetoric. Because that's what Scientology is based on. Their outer space is the same as everyone else's outer space. That's a weird inversion. I really want to figure it out in terms of how it plays into the masses, because you've got this version of the one world religion simultaneously being mocked as kooky. Like, generally speaking, most people would look on Scientology as a kooky, really weird religion. Now, people who are ex-Scientologists describe it as a sex trafficking cult. Not sex trafficking, human trafficking cult. me mixing P Diddy with with Scientology, but a human trafficking.
Does your
cult.
average Joe know that Scientology is based on aliens, though, or does your average Joe just think science?
I don't know, but if they have even the vaguest idea what Scientology is, they know it's a religion. Most people, if you say, "Well, are you a Scientologist?" No, I'm not a part of some crazy religion.
Yeah, shaming Scientologists is shaming anybody who looks too deeply into heliocentrism. Effectively, it keeps you at a placid level.
Yeah, don't get too into it because you might become a Scientologist. But they've got people right on that edge, though, haven't they? Like I say, in mainstream rhetoric currently, the notion of aliens and alien invaders and they're coming to get us, that's the fear porn of the moment. I mean, I shouldn't say it with a smile. People are genuinely terrified of this nonsense.
It has been for a long time, though, hasn't it? Ever since, wasn't there a radio broadcast that was put out in America as a spoof? And
The War of the Worlds?
People for real?
Yeah, that was the War of the Worlds, H.G. Wells.
Yeah, they played the disclaimer that it was a dramatization of a screenplay while a football match was going on in the States, so that people would swap the radio channel and just tune into War of the Worlds halfway through. And obviously, being on the radio, you couldn't rewind it and go and listen to the fact that it's disclaimed as being a dramatization. Again, just a way of keeping people geared up for this notion of aliens and alien invaders, and I don't know. I find the whole thing ridiculous. But we can mock this and find it ridiculous, but because we do, we suffer that which we can experience. We can experience the ridicule and mockery from the outside perspective, but we just can't tell anybody else because we are the mocked, we are the ridiculed. And that's orchestrated intentionally, like all roads from conspiracy leading to flat Earth. That's preordained to make it that way. So should we try to describe these things to people, we're automatically seen as kooky as a Scientologist.
It is a strange situation to be in. And I think it would weigh a lot heavier on me if I didn't know and without a doubt that Earth is flat. So because I know that without a doubt, it doesn't weigh too heavy. I can take it all with a pinch of salt.
I completely agree. That is my sentiment also. But the idea of me needing to communicate this with people is considerably lessened since knowing for sure and without a doubt that Earth is flat. I feel far less compelled to tell others about it. They're just not ready. Most of them just aren't ready for it. They've got their religion. They're happy with their religion. They don't know it's a religion. And all you'll do is ruin their day if you try and point that out to them.
It's a good point. It's a sad point, but it's true.
We've got anybody in Discord that wanted to chat? We are going to stay live for a little bit longer, like I say. I don't mind as it's a Friday. I'm going out for a curry later.
Have I bored you already? Sorry.
No. I'm just inviting anybody who's in Discord to join in the conversation if they want to. If not, it's just going to be me playing on a game while we're live, which I don't mind either, as we've already had the hour.
Yeah, I feel that it's all about timing when you want to introduce the topic matter. If it comes up, if the timing's right, you can always discuss it, of course, even if it might ruin one or two people's days. But there you go. I'm in a position where it comes up in the textbook, the globe comes up. So then you ask the kids and the adults alike as well, how do you know that you're living on this globe? Is this globe real? How do you know this? And that's where it begins. So for me, it's always about the timing. And I think I'm in a great position to educate it. So I use that opportunity every time I get the chance.
What I wanted to know, Nathan, is how many pages are you dedicating in your book towards this one world religion and Scientology and heliocentrism, all this shit? Are you going to delve into the details of it at all?
Maybe. I mean, it's very much in flux at the moment, so I don't know. I haven't given it much thought. Don't know. Maybe none.
All right. Anyone?
Yeah, go ahead. Arthur B. Flat, go ahead.
Yep. Anyone remembers those days when Globers used to come up with the argument that we have circumnavigated the globe and hence it has to be a globe because you come back to the same place? And to this, flat earthers' argument used to be that we have only circumnavigated east to west or west to east, but we have never circumnavigated north to south or south to north. I guess you remember those days.
Yeah, that was
the
one
early
of Matt
days of
Powerland's original arguments. So 10, 11 years ago now, that was what Matt Powerland was saying. Nobody's gone over the top and background or down the bottom, as it's alleged. These days, we go, well, travelling south is a flat earth orientation, it's a flat earth directionality. So to say we've travelled south and they're going to come back up on ourselves is a contradiction in terms. You're violating the axiomatic principle of south if you try and describe it in that fashion.
Thank you for that. I was just hoping you would come up with that. Another question. Do any of you even remember when you used the Selenalian, whatever that eclipse is, in your argument in order to debunk Glober's claim of eclipses being proof of globe Earth? I don't even remember, but again, I heard a lot of it during the early flat Earth days of 2017, 2018. But
are you talking about the famous?
Ever since we know what we know now, yeah. I have never used that argument ever since because it never boils down to that. And obviously, I'm going to point out the affirming the consequent logical fallacy with the begging the question and everything. I take that direction these days. But unfortunately, we have flat earthers who are still talking about Selenalian and whatever.
I mean, I think the Celine Dion eclipse is a really important argument.
Yes, so do I.
Everyone loves Celine Dion.
Yeah. But the Selenalian eclipse as well, you know, I still mention it because people still mention the eclipse and I say it doesn't prove shape. And what about this eclipse known as the impossible eclipse? So it's a problem for them, not for us. So I still use it.
I think it proves that the Earth is not casting a shadow because both the Earth and the Moon are above the horizon at the same time. So it proves it's not the cause, right?
Right. That's it. So that's the whole point I bring up. So I still use it and I'll use it to the day I die. Sorry.
And then if they try to say, oh, the Earth does cause an eclipse, well, that invokes scientific method. And then you can say, oh, well, what's your independent variable? And they don't have one.
And that's known as
do we really need the Selenalian eclipse in order to question their begging the question, in order to point out that they are begging the question? They are begging the question even when they are talking about any eclipse, not just this particular eclipse, Celine Dion one.
Yeah, but we are thoroughly debunking their position. That's the point. Thoroughly debunking. That's all. I don't bring it up as a thing, but when they bring it up, that's when I bring it up. That's it. So it's to checkmate. That's all. Thoroughly debunking and checkmating them. So that's what you've got to do. You don't want to use it, okay, that's fine.
So once again, that would be scrutinizing NASA images in order to thoroughly debunk their claims of moon landing and Mars landing and everything.
Yes, of course. And those images have been thoroughly scrutinized, even with today's latest digital analysis software that you can get for free. So that comes up, it comes up, and I give them the links and I show them the images that have been debunked, and they get thoroughly debunked.
So by comparison, Jin, if I was to say, well, I can show that the images from Narnia are definitely composites, you see how comparatively trying to argue with someone that images from Narnia are composites is superseded by saying that Narnia isn't real and demonstrating how Narnia is not real. It kind of supersedes the idea that you need to show that the images from Narnia are composites.
Well, yeah, I see what you mean, but the imagery is in our domain, and it's been purported to have come from a region called space, but it can be proven that you can't go there, and this is perfectly right. I'm going to carry on operating my way anyway. I'm getting results. I'm not having problems, Globers are dumbfounded.
Fair enough. It just leaves a door open to believe in outer space. If you can demonstrate that they're faking space, there's an underlying understanding that space is real, but they're just faking what they do in space. Whereas if you debunk Narnia at its core as not real, then that undermines every premise of heliocentric outer space without an exception. Yeah,
I do that. And it's what I call dumping on them. I do that, and that's what I mean by a thorough debunking. I do that, what you say, and give them the fact that, look at this is fakery, clearly, because space is fake, proven to be fake in that sense. So I'd just like to do a thorough job, Nathan.
Well, I was saying, yes, Jin, it just prolongs the conversation, and there used to be a time, the early days of Flat Earth, when I have also engaged in hours of conversations on all these topics. Just that these days, I do not waste my time entertaining a globalist paradigm because I don't have to. They are invoking a flat earth paradigm. I just need to point that out. That's all.
Yeah, that's true. Back in the day, that's what I used to shut them down quickly. But I used to get told off for shutting the conversation down too quick. Let's so, there are two schools of thought at play here. I'm in the middle, and I do as I see fit, and that is a thorough debunking. So don't want to hear anyone squabbling over that.
You hit it right in the head, Jim. That's the problem. You see, if you end the argument too quick, then you got people crying, "Oh, you ended the argument. What are you going to do?" I mean, what's going on here?
What's going on
is end this argument, and first of all, you got to show them that there is no argument.
Yes.
To end in the first place.
Yes, that's the problem. The people who are crying because the argument's ended require there to be an argument. Now, often they'll pretend that they're flat earthers, but in most instances, these are people who want the doubt, want the argument, want the debate, because without it, there is no debate, there is no argument. And that is the position we find ourselves in when we talk about how Earth is actually measured, utilised in all circumstances as a flat plane. So if you're going to argue about whether or not there's a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, and we come along and point out this on screen, the flat Earth prerequisite elevation angle measurement of the sun, that ends the discussion. Earth's being measured flat. If they go, well, yeah, locally we do. You're like, okay, if you want me to entertain this, I would then launch into asking you to provide me with global measurements, and then we get into an argument about tangential planes to a ball rather than from the surface. Whereas if you just stick to what is the surface being measured as, how is Earth measured, it is, was, and always will be flat. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, hit me up on PayPal and Patreon and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.